The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with nervous voices. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in their assigned seats, their faces showing worry and fear. The emergency meeting had been called in the middle of the night cycle, which meant something terrible had happened. The lights in the hall were dimmed to accommodate species with sensitive eyes, but even in the shadows, everyone could see the tension in the air. Ambassador Thelanara entered through the main doors, and immediately the room fell silent. She was a Vexian, a species known for their grace and calm nature. Her people had transparent wings that usually shimmered with beautiful colors. But today those wings were gray and trembling. She walked slowly to the speaking platform in the center of the hall, each step looking like it took all her strength. Her breathing was heavy, and her uniform was torn in several places. The council leader, an elderly Morphean named Guildmaster Zeth, leaned forward in his seat. His 3 eyes blinked in concern as he spoke through the translation device. "Ambassador Thelanara, you look exhausted. Please take your time and tell us what has happened." Elena gripped the sides of the podium to steady herself. She had not slept in 5 days. Her ship had traveled without stopping through 3 different star systems to reach the council headquarters. She had pushed her crew and her vessel to their absolute limits because the message she carried could not wait even 1 more hour. "The Ravagers have broken through our defenses," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, but still clear through the translation system. "The Outer Rim is lost." The hall erupted in shocked voices. Council members stood from their seats, some shouting questions, others making sounds of distress in their native languages. The Outer Rim was home to 12 peaceful civilizations, billions of lives spread across hundreds of planets. It was supposed to be safe, protected by the combined military forces of the Galactic Alliance. Zeth raised his hand, calling for silence. "Please, everyone remain calm. Ambassador, continue your report." Thelanara touched a control on the podium, and a holographic display appeared above her head. It showed a map of the galaxy, with red markers spreading like a disease across the outer edge. Each red marker represented a world that had fallen to the Ravagers. There were so many red markers that they blurred together into a solid mass of crimson. "We tried everything," Thelanara continued, her voice growing stronger with anger and frustration. "We sent our fleets, our best weapons, our smartest tacticians. The Ravagers destroyed them all. These creatures, they are not like anything we have faced before. They adapt to our weapons. They learn from our tactics. Every time we develop a new defense, they change and overcome it within days." She pulled up another image, and several council members looked away in horror. The image showed a Ravager captured from long-range sensors before the recording ship was destroyed. The creature was massive, 3 meters tall, with 6 legs and 4 arms. Its body was covered in thick armor that seemed to be made of both metal and organic material. Its face had no eyes, just a gaping mouth filled with rows of sharp teeth that rotated like a grinding machine. "They consume everything," Thelanara said quietly. "Vegetation, animals, buildings, even the soil itself. They break it all down and use it to make more of themselves. We estimate that the swarm has grown by 300% since they first arrived. If they are not stopped, they will consume the entire galaxy within 2 standard years." A Pelthian representative named Counselor Vex stood up, his small body shaking with fear. "What about evacuation? We must save who we can and fall back to more defensible positions." "We are trying," Thelanara replied. "But there are too many people and not enough ships. Millions are fleeing toward the galactic core right now. The refugee routes are overcrowded, supplies are running short, and panic is spreading. Some governments are closing their borders, refusing to accept refugees out of fear that the Ravagers might follow them." Another council member, a floating jellyfish-like creature called an Aquarian, spoke through bubbling sounds that the translator converted to words. "Perhaps we should consider negotiation. Every species can be reasoned with. Maybe the Ravagers want territory or resources that we can provide without conflict." Thelanara's wings suddenly flared with angry red color. "We tried negotiation. We sent diplomatic ships with messages of peace in every known language and mathematical code. The Ravagers consumed those ships and everyone on board. They do not want to talk. They only want to feed. The hall fell into heavy silence. Every person present understood what this meant. Their peaceful galaxy, which had not seen a major war in 500 years, was facing an enemy that could not be reasoned with, could not be defeated by their current forces, and would not stop until everything was gone. Zeph spoke carefully, his old voice filled with sadness. Then we have no choice. We must unite our remaining forces and make one final stand. We will know, Thelanara interrupted, which was a serious breach of protocol. But she did not care about protocol anymore. I did not travel 3 parsecs without sleep to watch this council vote on another doomed military action. Our combined fleets have already failed twice. A third attempt will only waste more lives.
Then what do you suggest?
Zeth asked, though his tone indicated he already suspected what she would say. Thelanara took a deep breath and spoke the words that would change everything. We must contact Earth. We must ask the humans for help. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Half the council members began shouting at once. Some called it madness. Others called it forbidden. And a few simply made sounds of pure fear at the mention of Earth and its terrifying inhabitants. Absolutely not. Shouted a reptilian Thracian counselor. The humans are dangerous. They were quarantined for good reason. They are violent and unpredictable. Added another voice. They evolved on a death world, cried a third. Their entire planet tried to kill them for millions of years. And they responded by becoming the deadliest predators in their ecosystem. Thelanara waited for the shouting to die down before she continued. Yes, all of that is true. Humans are violent. They are unpredictable. They come from a world so dangerous that 90% of council species would die within hours of landing there. But that is exactly why we need them. She pulled up another file on the holographic display, this one heavily encrypted with classified markers all over it. I accessed the restricted archives. I read the real reports from first contact with humans, not the edited versions we were all taught. Do you know what I learned? Humans have been fighting and surviving on their death world for their entire existence. They have faced extinction dozens of times and always found a way to survive. They do not give up, they do not surrender, and they absolutely do not run from a fight. Zeth looked troubled. The quarantine was imposed 3 centuries ago after the incident. Humans showed technological creativity that frightened the Council. They had only just achieved spaceflight, but their weapons were centuries ahead of where they should have been. They had nuclear weapons, biological weapons, chemical weapons all developed while fighting each other. The Council decided they were too dangerous to integrate into galactic society. Yes, Thelanara agreed. We locked them in their own star system because we were afraid of what they might do to the galaxy. But now the galaxy is dying, and we need someone who knows how to fight, who understands survival, who will do whatever is necessary to win. She looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of every council member. We need Deathworlders. We need the humans. The vote was called. It was the closest vote in council history, passing by only 3 votes. As the session ended and the council members filed out, many of them looked sick with worry. They had just invited humanity back into the galaxy. They could only hope it was the right decision, and not the beginning of something even worse than the Ravagers. The message from the Galactic Council arrived at Earth's orbital command station on a Tuesday morning. The communication came through old diplomatic channels that had not been used in 300 years. The signal was weak and heavily encoded, which meant someone had to work for 6 hours just to decode the basic text. When they finally succeeded, the message was immediately forwarded to the United Nations Space Command headquarters in Geneva, Captain Sarah. Chen was in the middle of her morning coffee when her personal communicator beeped with an emergency alert. She was on the bridge of the UN's Indomitable, humanity's newest and largest warship, currently docked at the orbital shipyard above Earth. She put down her coffee and read the message on her datapad. Then she read it again. Then a third time, because she could not believe what she was seeing. The Galactic Council was asking for help. The same council that had quarantined humanity to its own star system for the past 3 centuries was now sending a desperate plea for military assistance. They were facing an enemy called the Ravagers, and according to the message, their combined forces had already been defeated twice. Chen was 42 years old with short black hair that was starting to show gray at the temples. Her face had several scars, including a large one across her left cheek that she got during the Titan mining wars 20 years ago. She had spent most of her adult life in space, working on mining ships, fighting in colonial conflicts, and eventually joining the military when Earth decided it needed to build a proper defense fleet. "Commander Rodriguez," she called to her second-in-command, "come look at this." James Rodriguez walked over from the tactical station. He was younger than Chen, only 35, but he had seen plenty of combat during the Mars Rebellion. He read the message over her shoulder, and his eyebrows went up in surprise. "Is this real? Are they actually asking us for help?" "Looks real," Chen said. "The encryption codes match the old diplomatic protocols." "Someone on the council wants us involved." Rodriguez leaned against the console, shaking his head in disbelief. "This is rich. They quarantine us, tell us we are too violent and too dangerous for their peaceful galaxy, and now they want us to save them." Chen understood his anger because she felt it too. The quarantine had been hard on humanity. For 300 years, humans had been stuck in their own star system. Watching the stars and knowing they were not allowed to go there, the Council had placed automated defense satellites around the Sol system with instructions to destroy any human ship that tried to leave. They said it was for everyone's safety. But it felt like being in prison. But humans did not sit still during those 3 centuries. They spread throughout their star system, building colonies on Mars, Europa, Titan, and dozens of other moons and asteroids. They developed new technologies, built new ships, and prepared for the day when they would finally break free. The Council thought the quarantine was keeping humanity contained, but really it just gave them time to get stronger. Chen stood up and walked to the main view screen. Outside the window, she could see dozens of other ships floating in orbit around Earth. There were military vessels like the Indomitable, bristling with weapons and armor. There were converted mining ships, their industrial equipment replaced with military hardware. There were transport ships, science vessels, and even some private ships whose owners had decided to join the fleet for their own reasons. This was humanity's secret. While the Council thought humans were safely locked away, Earth had been building an interstellar fleet in secret. It had taken 50 years of work, with thousands of engineers and workers constructing ships in hidden shipyards throughout the solar system. The fleet was not as large as what the major galactic powers had, but it was powerful and ready for action. "Send a response," Chen ordered. "Tell the Council that we received their message and we are considering their request." Rodriguez looked surprised. "We are going to make them wait." "They made us wait for 300 years, Chen said with a thin smile. "They can wait a few hours while we prepare." She touched her communicator. "This is Captain Chen to all fleet commanders. Emergency meeting in 30 minutes. Conference room Alpha." This is not a drill. The meeting was intense and lasted 3 hours. Fleet Admiral Marcus Thompson, the overall commander of Earth's Space Forces, presided over the discussion. 30 ship captains attended, either in person or through video link. They argued about whether to help the Council, what price to demand for their assistance, and how to make the most of this opportunity. Some captains wanted revenge. They wanted to refuse the Council's plea and let them face the consequences of their own weakness. Others saw this as a chance to prove that humanity deserved a place in the galaxy. A few just wanted to fight, because humans were generally excited about testing their ships and weapons against a real enemy. In the end, Admiral Thompson made the decision. "We are going to help them," he announced. "Not because we owe them anything, but because it is the right thing to do. Innocent people are dying, and we have the power to help. That is what humanity does. We help people, even our enemies." He looked around the room at each captain. "But we are not going to show up quietly and follow their orders. We are going to do this the human way. We are going to show the galaxy exactly what Deathworlders can do. We are going to make an entrance they will never forget." The fleet mobilized with impressive speed. Ships that were under construction were rushed to completion. Crews that were on leave were called back. Weapons were loaded, supplies were packed, and final checks were performed on every system. Earth had been preparing for this moment for decades. And now it was finally happening. Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable 2 days later. Watching the final preparations, her crew was working with practiced efficiency, checking systems and running diagnostics. The ship's artificial intelligence reported that all systems were operating at peak performance. The weapons were loaded, the shields were charged, and the jump drive was ready to tear a hole in space-time. Captain Rodriguez said from his station, "We are receiving transmissions from civilian ships. They want to join the fleet." Chen looked at the tactical display and saw dozens of new contacts appearing. There were mining ships, corporate transports, even a few luxury yachts. Their owners had heard about the mission and decided they wanted to be part of history. Some had military experience, others were just adventurous, but all of them wanted to go. "Tell them they can join us," Chen decided. "But they follow our orders and our rules. Anyone who cannot handle that should turn back now." None of them turned back. The human fleet grew from 47 ships to nearly 80 ships. A massive armada by human standards, even if it was small, compared to the forces the Azia Council could normally field. The departure was scheduled for noon Earth time. News channels broadcasted the event live, with billions of people watching from Earth and the colonies. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for, the day they would finally leave their star system and take their place among the stars. Chen gave the order at exactly noon. "All ships, prepare for jump. We are going to give the galaxy a wake-up call." The fleet's jump drives activated simultaneously, creating massive distortions in space-time. The Council's quarantine satellites tried to activate, but human hackers had already disabled them hours ago. There was nothing to stop the fleet now. Jump in 3, 2, 1, execute. Space folded, reality bent, and the human fleet vanished from the Sol system in a flash of light and radiation. They were heading toward the Outer Rim, toward the war zone, toward the Ravagers. The journey would take 3 days at maximum jump speed. Chen spent those 3 days reviewing everything they knew about the enemy, which was not much, and preparing her crew for combat, which they were eager for. On the 3rd day, they received an updated message from Ambassador Thelanara. The Ravagers were attacking Harmonia Prime, a refugee staging point where millions of aliens were gathered waiting for evacuation. The colony world would fall within hours if help did not arrive soon. Chen looked at her crew. They were ready, alert, and absolutely unafraid. This was what humanity had been preparing for. This was their moment. "Change course for Harmonia Prime," she ordered. "And someone start preparing the welcome message. Let us introduce ourselves properly." As the fleet adjusted course, Chen allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy had kept humanity locked away because they were afraid of what humans might do. Now they were about to find out, and Chen intended to make absolutely sure it was a demonstration the galaxy would never forget. The refugee fleet around Harmonia Prime was in chaos. Thousands of ships floated in a desperate cluster around the small colony world, all trying to evacuate people before the Ravagers arrived. The ships were packed beyond their safety limits with families, children, elderly aliens, and anyone else who could fit. Some ships had so many people on board that their life support systems were failing. But no one wanted to turn anyone away. Ambassador Thelanara stood on the bridge of her command ship, staring at the sensor displays with growing despair. The Ravager swarm was 4 hours away and getting closer every minute. Her own fleet, what remained of it after 2 devastating battles, had only 14 warships left. They were damaged, low on ammunition, and exhausted. They could not win this fight. The best they could hope for was to delay the Ravagers long enough for a few more transport ships to escape. Ambassador, her sensor officer, called out, "I am detecting spatial distortions at the edge of the system. Multiple jump signatures." Thelanara felt her heart sink. Were the Ravagers arriving early? Had they developed jump drive technology? That would be a disaster. She looked at the sensor screen, trying to understand what she was seeing. The distortions were wrong. Jump drives normally created smooth, predictable patterns in space. These distortions were chaotic, violent, and created far too much radiation. Whoever was jumping in was using very old technology or very dangerous technology. Then the first ship emerged from jump space. Thelanara realized who had arrived. The humans had come. The UNs. Indomitable, tore into normal space with what could only be described as excessive force. The ship did not emerge smoothly like civilized vessels did. Instead, it burst through the fabric of reality like a bullet through paper, trailing energy and radiation in its wake. And then, impossibly, the massive warship performed a barrel roll as it cleared the jump point. Thelanara stared in shock. Did that ship just spin? Why did it spin? More ships followed, each one emerging with the same violent energy. But what truly shocked the watching aliens was that each human ship seemed to be trying to outdo the others with unnecessary maneuvers. One ship came out of jump space sideways. Another one was somehow spinning on 3 different axes at once. A mining vessel emerged and immediately fired what appeared to be fireworks in all directions, creating a spectacular but completely pointless light show. The sensor officer was struggling to keep track of all the arriving ships. Ambassador, I count 47 military vessels and ... Wait, there are more. Civilian ships. Why are there civilian ships? The human fleet continued to arrive, growing larger by the minute. And then someone on one of the human ships started broadcasting music on all frequencies. It was loud, aggressive, and had a heavy beat that made the bridge speakers vibrate. The lyrics were in English, but the translation came through. Something about breaking rules and fighting back and never surrendering. They are jamming our sensors with music, the sensor officer said in disbelief. The sound waves are so loud, they are interfering with our scanning equipment. One of the human ships, a converted transport that had been painted bright red with yellow flames, was broadcasting on the emergency channel. The hull had words painted in huge letters. Dancing Queen Express, fast delivery or your money back. Several refugees were so shocked they actually laughed despite the desperate situation. Then Captain Jen's voice came through on all channels, clear and confident. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Command to all Ravager forces in this system. You have been eating our potential friends, and we find this extremely rude. You have 10 seconds to surrender before we introduce you to some human concepts. The translator struggled with some of the words, but the meaning was clear enough. The humans were threatening the Ravagers. Thelanara wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. The humans had no idea what they were facing. The Ravagers did not surrender. They did not negotiate. They only consumed. Chen continued her message. 10 seconds have passed, and I see you have not surrendered. This is disappointing, but expected. Allow me to educate you on human warfare. Lesson 1. We believe in something called overkill, which means using far more force than necessary. Lesson 2. We enjoy violence more than we probably should. Lesson 3. Someone in my crew just said hold my beer and watch this, which is never a good sign for our enemies. All ships, weapons free. Show them what Deathworlders can do. The human fleet did not wait for the Ravagers to get closer. They accelerated toward the enemy's swarm at speeds that made Thelanara gasp. The ships moved so fast that they were creating visible shockwaves in the thin gas of the system. They were not maintaining formation, not keeping safe distances, not following any recognizable tactical doctrine. They were just charging straight at an enemy that had destroyed 2 galactic fleets. The Ravagers responded by launching their bioships toward the humans. These were organic vessels grown from consumed matter, fast and deadly and covered in weapons. There were hundreds of them, and they moved in a coordinated swarm that had proven unstoppable against Council forces. But the Ravagers had never faced humans before. The first human ship to engage was a destroyer called the USS Reckless. It fired a weapon that Council sensors could not identify. Some kind of kinetic accelerator that shot metal slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. The rounds tore through 3 Ravager bioships in a row. The kinetic energy so intense that the ships simply exploded into clouds of organic matter. Other human ships opened fire with a bewildering variety of weapons. There were missiles that seemed to have their own guidance systems and actually dodged defensive fire. There were energy weapons that cut through Ravager armor like it was paper. One ship was firing nuclear missiles, actual atomic weapons, and treating them like they were simple bullets. The humans were just throwing them at targets one after another without any hesitation. Are they insane? The Lenara whispered. Nuclear weapons in open space combat. The radiation will contaminate everything. Her tactical officer shook his head in amazement. Ambassador, I do not think they care. Look at that one. He pointed at a mining ship that had apparently been equipped with an industrial plasma cutter. The ship was flying straight at a Ravager bioship and using the plasma cutter like a sword, literally cutting the enemy vessel in half as it flew past. The battle was unlike anything the Council forces had ever seen. The humans were not trying to maintain safe distances or preserve their ships for future battles. They were fighting with absolute aggression, taking risks that no civilized species would consider. One human destroyer got too close to a Ravager ship and was struck by acid spray that ate through its armor. Instead of retreating, the destroyer rammed the Ravager ship at full speed, destroying both vessels in a massive explosion. But the most shocking moment came when a voice came over the emergency channel. This is the transport ship Crazy Ivan to all human vessels. Our engines are damaged and we cannot maneuver. We have a full load of supplies, including 6 nuclear warheads. Rather than let the Ravagers take this ship, we are going to deliver these supplies directly to the enemy. It has been an honor serving with you all. Before anyone could respond, the Crazy Ivan accelerated directly into the center of the Ravager swarm. The explosion was massive, destroying dozens of enemy ships and creating a flash of light that temporarily blinded sensors throughout the system. When the light faded, there was a clear gap in the Ravager formation. Did they just... Did they just suicide bomb the enemy? Thelanara asked in shock. Chen's voice came through again, and she sounded emotional. Crazy Ivan, you magnificent idiots. All ships, avenge the Ivan, close to knife-fighting range, and make them regret every life form they ever consumed. The human fleet surged forward with renewed fury. Ships that were already fighting aggressively somehow became even more aggressive. A corvette called the Mosquito was flying circles around a large Ravager bioship, firing constantly and dodging return fire with impossible precision. The pilot was apparently treating the combat like a game, even broadcasting taunts at the enemy in between weapon shots. 2 hours into the battle, the Ravagers tried a new tactic. They launched boarding pods at the human ships, trying to infest them with Ravager warriors. These warriors were 3 meters tall, covered in thick armor, had regenerative abilities, and acid blood that made them nearly impossible to kill in close combat. They had successfully boarded and taken over several council ships in previous battles. The boarding pods hit the UN's Indomitable, and Ravager warriors poured into the ship through breached hull sections. Chen immediately called for her Marine detachment. Marines, we have hostile boarders on decks 7 through 12. Please remove them. The response came from Sergeant Maria Santos. Copy that, Captain. Boys and girls, we have bugs on the ship. Let us go teach them why boarding a human vessel is a bad idea. Thelanara managed to tap into the Indomitable's internal cameras. She watched as human Marines in powered armor moved through the corridors. The armor was covered in painted graffiti, personal messages, and unit symbols. One Marine had painted bug spray on his chest plate. They moved in coordinated teams, using tactics that were clearly practiced and refined. The first contact between humans and Ravagers was brief and violent. A Ravager warrior tried to use its acid blood as a weapon, spraying it at the Marines. The humans just activated their armor's protection systems and kept firing. When one Marine's weapon jammed, he simply beat the Ravager with the gun until it stopped moving, then fixed the jam and continued. They are treating the acid blood as a minor inconvenience, Thelanara said in disbelief. The same acid that dissolved our ship hulls, and they are just ignoring it. The Marines cleared the invaded sections in 47 minutes. They did not just kill the Ravagers. They were actually joking and laughing while doing it. One Marine was heard saying, "I have seen scarier things in Australian wildlife documentaries."
Nice.
As the battle continued, it became clear that the humans were winning. The Ravagers, who had adapted to every council tactic and weapon, could not adapt fast enough to the chaotic human fighting style. Every time the Ravagers changed their approach, the humans changed faster. They were improvising, creating new tactics on the fly, and treating the entire battle like a violent puzzle that they were determined to solve. 6 hours after the humans arrived, the last Ravager bioship was destroyed. The human fleet battered, but victorious. Regrouped around Harmonia Prime, they had lost 11 ships and several hundred crew members. But they had completely destroyed a Ravager swarm that had defeated 2 Council fleets. The refugee ships were safe, and the evacuation could continue. Captain Chen broadcast a message to the refugee fleet. This is Captain Chen to all civilian vessels. The immediate threat has been eliminated. Please continue your evacuation in an orderly manner. Human vessels will maintain a defensive perimeter until everyone is safely away. Also, if anyone has information about Ravager staging areas or fleet positions, please share it. We would like to have a conversation with the rest of their forces. Thelanara sat down in her command chair, her wings trembling with a mixture of relief and shock. The humans had arrived, fought a battle that should have been impossible to win, and were now calmly offering to continue fighting. They had treated a desperate last stand as just another day at work. And the most terrifying part was that they seemed to have enjoyed it. The day after the Battle of Harmonia Prime, Ambassador Thelanara received an invitation to visit the human flagship. Captain Chen wanted to discuss strategy and share information about the Ravagers. Thelanara accepted immediately, both because it was diplomatically necessary and because she was intensely curious about these strange beings who fought with such unusual methods. Her shuttle approached the UN's Indomitable slowly. Even up close, the ship was intimidating. It was over 2 kilometers long, covered in armor plating and weapon systems. But what struck Thelanara most was the damage. The ship had huge scars across its hull from the battle, burn marks from energy weapons, and several holes that had been temporarily patched with metal plates. Yet the ship was still operational and ready to fight. When she entered the hangar bay, Thelanara was greeted by Captain Chen herself. The human woman was shorter than Thelanara expected, but she carried herself with absolute confidence. The scar on her face made her look dangerous, but her smile seemed genuine and welcoming. Ambassador Thelanara, welcome aboard, Chen said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. Thank you for coming. I know my people, and our methods must seem strange to you. Thelanara gently touched Chen's hand, completing the greeting. Strange is one word for it, Captain. Terrifying is another. I watched your fleet fight yesterday, and I am not sure whether to thank you or be afraid of you. Chen laughed, a warm sound that echoed in the hangar. That is a very reasonable reaction. Come, let me show you around and maybe help you understand us a bit better. As they walked through the ship, Thelanara saw human crew members working on repairs. They were efficient and focused, but they also talked and joked with each other constantly. She heard laughter coming from a repair team that was fixing a damaged weapons system. One crew member was playing music from a small device while others sang along. It was so different from the quiet, professional atmosphere on council ships. Your crew seems very... relaxed for people who just fought a major battle, Thelanara observed. That is how humans deal with stress, Chen explained. We make jokes, we play music, we stay busy. If we sat around thinking about the dangers too much, we would go crazy. So instead we laugh at death and get back to work. They entered the medical bay, and Thelanara saw both human and alien patients being treated. Human doctors and nurses were working on injured refugees, using their medical equipment to help species they had never encountered before. One doctor was arguing with a medical computer, trying to figure out the proper dosage of pain medication for a Pelthian patient. We have been studying council medical databases, Chen said. Our doctors are learning as fast as they can, but alien biology is complicated. Still, we have managed to save quite a few lives. A young human nurse approached them, looking excited. Captain Chen, you should see this. We figured out how to treat Vexian wing damage. We used a combination of human tissue grafting techniques and a council healing device. The patient will make a full recovery. Chen smiled proudly. Excellent work, Lieutenant. That is what I am talking about, Ambassador. Humans are very good at adapting. We take what we know, combine it with what we learn, and create something new. It is how we survived on Earth, and it is how we fight our enemies. They continued to the ship's laboratory, where Thelanara saw something that made her stop in shock. Human scientists were dissecting a dead Ravager warrior, carefully examining every part of its biology. They had the creature laid out on a table with various organs and tissues separated and labeled. Nearby, other scientists were analyzing samples of Ravager armor and weapons. "You are studying them," Thelanara said quietly. "The Council tried this, but we could never keep specimens intact long enough. They dissolve after death." A scientist looked up from her microscope, a woman with gray hair and intense eyes. "We figured out how to preserve the tissue within 20 minutes of death. The trick is to immediately freeze the sample and stabilize it with a chemical compound. We have been studying these creatures all night, and we have learned some fascinating things." She pulled up images on a computer screen. "The Ravagers are not natural creatures. They were engineered, probably as a biological weapon by some ancient civilization. Their ability to adapt is built into their genetic structure. Every time they encounter a new threat, their bodies analyze it and develop resistance. That is why Council weapons stopped working after the first few battles." Chen nodded. "But the good news is that adaptation takes time. If we hit them with many different weapons very quickly, they cannot adapt fast enough. That is why our chaotic fighting style works. We are not giving them time to adjust." Thelanara felt a chill run through her body. "You figured this out in one day?" "The Council has been fighting them for months and never understood this," the scientist shrugged. "We have a lot of experience with dangerous biology. Earth has thousands of species that tried to kill us over millions of years. We learned to study our enemies, understand their weaknesses, and exploit them. It is what predators do." Chen led Thelanara to the bridge, where they could talk privately in the captain's ready room. The room was simple but comfortable, with a desk, some chairs, and pictures on the walls showing Earth and its colonies. Chen poured 2 cups of coffee and offered one to Thelanara. "It is a human drink," Chen explained, "caffeinated and bitter. It might not agree with your biology, but you are welcome to try it." Thelanara took a small sip and immediately regretted it. The drink was indeed bitter and left a strange burning sensation. But she appreciated the gesture. "Thank you, Captain. Now, shall we discuss strategy?" Chen pulled up a star map on her desk display. It showed the current positions of refugee fleets, Council forces, and estimated Ravager locations. The red markers showing Ravager territory covered a frighteningly large area. "Here's what we know," Chen began. "The Ravagers are operating from a main staging area somewhere in dark space, beyond the outer rim. They send out swarms to attack and consume, then return to the staging area to reproduce and grow larger. If we keep fighting defensive battles, we will eventually lose. There are too many of them, and they keep getting stronger." "So what do you propose?" Thelanara asked. "We go on the offense," Chen said simply. "We find their staging area and destroy it completely. Cut off the head, and the body dies." Thelanara felt her hearts race with fear. "That is madness, Captain. We do not even know where their staging area is. And if we did, attacking it would be suicide. There could be millions of Ravagers there." Chen smiled, and there was something predatory in that smile. "Ambassador, do you know what humans are? I mean, really at our core?" "You are Deathworlders," Thelanara replied. "You evolved on a planet that tried to kill you constantly." "Yes. But more than that," Chen said. "We are persistent hunters. On Earth, humans were not the fastest or strongest predators, but we had endurance and intelligence. We would chase prey for hours or days until they collapsed from exhaustion. We would track wounded animals across vast distances. We never gave up, never stopped, never quit until we won." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "The Ravagers think they are the ultimate predators. They consume and adapt and grow. But they have never faced a species like ours. We are going to hunt them, Ambassador. We are going to chase them back to their nest, and then we are going to end them." Over the next few days, the human fleet got to work. They captured several Ravager bioships by disabling them with precise weapons fire. Human scientists studied the ship's navigation systems and found traces of the routes they had traveled. By analyzing the data from multiple ships, they were able to triangulate the approximate location of the Ravager staging area. Meanwhile, human engineers were working with captured Ravager technology. They discovered that the organic armor the Ravagers used was incredibly strong and self-repairing. Within a week, human ships were being retrofitted with hybrid armor that combined human alloys with Ravager biological materials. The engineers called it bug armor and seemed very pleased with themselves. The human approach to warfare was starting to spread to the Council forces. Some Council captains were asking their human counterparts for advice and training. Chen had started holding daily briefings, where she shared human tactics and strategies. She taught them about aggressive maneuvering, about using unconventional weapons, about taking risks when necessary. Not all Council officers appreciated the lessons. Some found the human methods too reckless, too violent, too unpredictable. But others embraced them, especially the younger officers who were tired of losing battles. A new hybrid fighting style was emerging, combining Council discipline with human aggression. Thelanara spent much of her time with the humans. Learning about their culture and history, she discovered that humans had fought countless wars among themselves before achieving spaceflight. They had nearly destroyed their own planet several times, but always managed to pull back from the brink. They had a complicated relationship with violence. They hated war, but were very good at it when necessary. What impressed her most was their compassion. Despite their aggressive nature, humans genuinely cared about the refugees. Human ships were constantly helping with evacuations. Human medics worked around the clock treating alien wounded, and human engineers helped repair damaged civilian ships. They fought brutally against enemies, but showed kindness to innocent people. One evening, Thelanara found Chen in the observation deck, looking at the stars. The captain seemed tired but content. "Your people are remarkable," Thelanara said quietly. "Terrifying, but remarkable." Chen nodded. "We are products of our world, Ambassador. Earth made us tough because anything weak died. But Earth also made us compassionate because cooperation and community were the only ways to survive. We fight hard, but we also care deeply. That is what it means to be human." "The Council was wrong to quarantine you," Thelanara said. "We were afraid of your violence and missed your heart." "Well," Chen replied with a tired smile, "you are getting a chance to see the full picture now. And when this is over, maybe the galaxy will understand that Deathworlders are not monsters. We are survivors. And sometimes survivors are exactly what you need." The next morning, Chen called her fleet together and announced that they had found the Ravager staging area. It was time to take the fight to the enemy. The final battle was coming, and the humans were ready to show the galaxy what Deathworlders could really do. The journey to the Ravager staging area took 12 days. The human fleet, now joined by 20 volunteer council ships whose captains had been inspired by human tactics, traveled through dark space where no civilized species normally ventured. These were the empty regions between star systems, cold and dark, and far from any inhabited worlds. It was the perfect place for the Ravagers to build their base without being discovered. Captain Chen used the travel time to prepare her people for what would be the biggest battle of the war. She knew the staging area would be heavily defended. Intelligence suggested there could be thousands of Ravager bioships and possibly millions of warriors. This would be humanity's greatest challenge since they left Earth. On the 10th day, the fleet detected something massive ahead. Long-range sensors showed a structure that was part station and part living organism. It was enormous, perhaps 100 kilometers across, and it was producing new Ravager ships at a frightening rate. Every few hours, new bioships would emerge from organic growth pods and join the swarms circling the station. Chen called a meeting of all ship captains, both human and council officers, who had joined the mission. They gathered in a virtual conference room, their images transmitted across the fleet. Chen stood at the head of the table, with Ambassador Thelanara beside her as an observer. "This is it," Chen said, gesturing to the holographic image of the Ravager station. "We destroy this. We end the threat." The Ravagers cannot easily build another one, because this station took them years to grow. Without it, the remaining swarms will be manageable for Council forces to handle. A Council captain named Vrex raised a tentacle in question. Captain Chen, our sensors count over 3,000 enemy ships. We have less than 70 ships total. How can we possibly win? Chen smiled. Because we are not going to fight fair. Humans learned a long time ago that honor gets you killed. We are going to use every trick, every dirty tactic, and every advantage we can find. She pulled up a battle plan on the display. Here's what we are going to do. The plan was complicated and risky. Half the fleet would attack from the front, drawing the Ravager defenders away from the station. Meanwhile, a smaller strike force would approach from a different angle. Using stealth technology that humans had developed specifically for this mission, the strike force would carry special weapons bombs, filled with a biological agent that human scientists had created by studying captured Ravager tissue. Its agent is basically poison designed specifically for Ravager. Biology, explained Dr. Sarah Kim, the lead scientist who had joined the conference. It will attack their cellular structure and prevent regeneration. We tested it on captured specimens, and it works very effectively. But we need to deliver it directly to the station's core. Thelanara spoke up, her voice worried. Captain, you are describing a suicide mission. The strike force will never make it out alive once the Ravagers realize what is happening. That is why I am leading the strike force personally, Chen replied calmly. And I am only taking volunteers who understand the risks. She looked around the virtual conference room. I need 5 ships for the strike team. Who is with me? Every single captain raised their hand or tentacle or whatever appendage they had. Human and council officers alike volunteered without hesitation. Chen felt a surge of pride and had to blink away tears. These people had learned the most important human lessons. Sometimes you fight not because you are sure you will win, but because it is the right thing to do. Chen selected for human ships and 1 council vessel captained by Vrex, who had insisted that his people needed to be part of the final blow against the Ravagers. The strike team would consist of fast, maneuverable ships carrying the maximum payload of biological weapons. The battle began at dawn ship time, though in the darkness of space, there was no real dawn. The main fleet attacked with all weapons firing, drawing the Ravager swarm toward them. The fighting was intense immediately. Ravager bioships swarmed the human vessels like insects. But the humans fought with the aggressive tactics they had perfected over the past weeks. Meanwhile, Chen led her strike team on a wide arc around the battle. They moved slowly and quietly, using stealth systems to avoid detection. The 5 ships crept through the darkness, getting closer to the massive station with every minute. Chen watched her sensors nervously, waiting for the moment when the Ravagers would notice them. They made it within 10 kilometers before the alarm was raised. Suddenly, hundreds of Ravager ships broke off from the main battle and turned toward the strike team. Chen smiled grimly. All ships, full speed. Get to the station and deliver your payloads. Do not stop for anything. The 5 ships accelerated hard, racing toward the station while Ravager defenders closed in from all sides. The Indomitable shook as enemy weapons impacted the shields. Chen gripped her command chair and shouted orders. Return fire. Keep those ships off us for as long as possible. The strike team fought through the swarm, taking heavy damage but refusing to slow down. One of the human ships, the destroyer USS Valiant, took a direct hit to its engines and started to fall behind. The captain, a man named Thomas Wright, came over the radio. Indomitable, my ship is done for. But my payload is still intact. I am going to ram the station and detonate manually. Make this count, Chen. Before Chen could respond, the Valiant accelerated on emergency power directly into the station's surface. The explosion was massive, tearing a huge hole in the organic structure. Biomatter and energy erupted from the wound, and dozens of Ravager ships near the impact were destroyed by the blast. Captain Wright and the Valiant have opened the door, Chen said over the fleet channel, her voice tight with emotion. Strike team, follow me in. We are finishing this. The remaining 4 ships dove through the hole in the station. They found themselves inside a nightmarish organic structure, flying through tunnels made of living tissue that pulsed and moved around them. Ravager warriors swarmed inside the station, trying to stop the intruders, but the ships kept pushing forward. Chen's sensors detected the station's core up ahead, a massive chamber where new Ravager organisms were being grown. That is our target. All ships, arm your weapons and prepare to fire on my mark. They burst into the core chamber, and Chen saw thousands of Ravager embryos growing in organic pods. This was the heart of the enemy's reproduction capability. She did not hesitate. Fire everything. The 4 ships unleashed their payloads simultaneously. Biological weapons flooded the chamber, spreading the poison through the air and tissue. The effect was immediate and devastating. The embryos began to die, their organic matter breaking down. The station's living structure started to collapse as the poison spread through its systems. "Strike team, get out now," Chen ordered. "This whole place is coming down." The ships turned and raced back through the tunnels. Behind them, the station was literally dying, its organic tissue dissolving and its structure collapsing. Ravager warriors fell dead as the poison reached them. The entire massive structure was breaking apart. Rex's ship took a hit from falling debris and lost attitude control. His ship tumbled and crashed into a tunnel wall. Chen made an instant decision. "Indomitable to Rex, we are coming back for you." "Hold tight, no captain," Rex replied, his voice calm despite the situation. "My ship is destroyed, but I can still help. I am setting my reactor to overload. Get your people out, and I will make sure this station never grows back." "Do not. It has been an honor, Captain Chen. Thank you for teaching us how to fight like Deathworlders." The channel went dead. Chen felt tears on her face, but kept flying. The 3 remaining ships emerged from the dying station just as Rex's ship exploded, adding to the destruction. Behind them, the entire Ravager base was collapsing, breaking apart into millions of pieces. Years of growth and preparation destroyed in minutes. The main battle ended quickly after that. With their command station destroyed and their reproduction capability gone, the remaining Ravager ships became disorganized. The human and council fleets tore through them with practiced efficiency. By the end of the day, the Ravager threat was over. Not pushed back, not contained, but completely eliminated. The cost had been high. The human fleet had lost 18 ships and over 3,000 crew members. The council volunteers had lost 7 ships, but they had saved the galaxy from an enemy that would have consumed everything. 3 months later, Ambassador Thelanara stood before the Galactic Council once more. The chamber was full, with representatives from every member species present for this historic session. The debate had been going on for days what to do about humanity now that the war was over. Some council members wanted to reinstate the quarantine, arguing that humans were still too dangerous. Others wanted to grant humanity limited membership with restrictions. But Thelanara had different ideas. She had prepared her speech carefully, knowing this might be the most important thing she ever said. "Honored council members," she began. 3 months ago, I stood here and asked you to contact Earth. Many of you voted against it. You were afraid of the humans and their violent nature. You called them Deathworlders, like it was an insult, a warning of danger. She activated a holographic display showing images from the war. But I have spent 3 months with humans. I have fought beside them, lived among them, and learned from them. Yes, they are violent. Yes, they are chaotic. Yes, they evolved on a world so deadly that most of us would die within hours of landing there. But that is not the whole story. More images appeared, showing human medics treating alien wounded, human engineers helping refugees, human ships protecting civilian transports. Humans are violent when they need to be, but they are also compassionate. They are aggressive in battle, but they are kind to the innocent. They take risks that seem insane, but those risks are calculated to save lives. Thelanara looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each council member. You quarantined Earth because you feared what humans might do to the galaxy. I understand that fear. But let me tell you what I fear more. I fear what the galaxy will become without humans. Without their courage, their creativity, their refusal to give up even when facing impossible odds. She pulled up the casualty reports. Humans lost 3,000 people in this war. They could have left after the first battle. They could have demanded payment for their help. Instead, they stayed and fought until the threat was completely eliminated. They did not do this for glory or profit. They did this because it was right, council member interrupted. But what happens when humans turn that violence against us? What if they become the next threat? Then we will deal with it, Thelenar replied firmly. But I do not believe that will happen. Humans have shown us who they are. They are survivors who want to help others survive. They are warriors who protect the weak. They are Deathworlders, yes, but that is exactly what the galaxy needs. The debate continued for hours, but eventually the vote was called. The quarantine would be lifted. Earth would be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, and humanity would be given a special role as the rapid response force for existential threats to galactic civilization. Admiral Chen, promoted from captain after the war, accepted on humanity's behalf via holographic transmission from Earth. She stood in her dress uniform, her scarred face visible to every council member. On behalf of humanity, we accept this membership, Chen said. But I want to be clear about who we are and how we operate. We are loud. We are chaotic. We take risks that will make you uncomfortable. We will play our music too loud, fly our ships too aggressively, and generally refuse to follow your carefully organized rules. Some council members looked alarmed, but Chen continued with a slight smile. But we will also be there when you need us. When the monsters come, when the impossible threats arrive, when no one else knows what to do, humans will show up. We will fight for you, protect you, and refuse to let you fall, because that is what Deathworlders do. She paused, then added, Also, we are throwing a party to celebrate this moment, and you are all invited. We call it a barbecue. Be warned, our food is spicy, our drinks are strong, and we will probably teach you inappropriate songs. Consider yourselves warned. The human fleet began its first official patrol route the following week. Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now the flagship of humanity's galactic defense force, watching the stars stream past as they traveled through jump space. Her crew was at their stations, working with practiced efficiency, but also joking and playing music like always. Commander Rodriguez came up beside her. Admiral, do you think this will work? Can humans really fit into galactic society? Chen thought about the question for a moment, then smiled. Fit in? Probably not. We are too weird, too loud, too human for that, but we will find our place. We will show the galaxy that Deathworlders are not monsters to be feared. We are friends to be trusted, allies to be valued, and defenders to be grateful for. As the ship emerged from jump space near their patrol zone, Chen added, Besides, the galaxy was getting boring before we arrived. Time to shake things up a bit. The Indomitable accelerated toward the stars, trailing a holographic message visible to any ship in the area. Humanity, serving and protecting the galaxy since 2325. We came. We saw. We probably overdid it. The age of the Deathworlders had officially begun, and the galaxy would never quite be the same again. But then again, that was exactly how humans liked it.